Dawson's Rambles.
Hey YouTube, Dawson Writer here. Welcome to my next video in my series of videos going over my thoughts on varying tokusatsu suits. My second writer-based one. In this one I will be covering kind of the rest of the main writers I didn't go over before. Kind of like I did with Sentai Power Rangers, where I kind of did a modern one and then went back and did the old Showa ones as well as some odds and ends. And that's what this video is going to be. Of course, going over the Showa writers and then kind of odds and ends of other things from the more modern era that are stuff like spin-off series like Amazon's, stuff like future Geo writers, and odds and ends like that. There might be some you might not consider it, but I'm including anything I would consider something that is something of a main writer or designed to be like one. And also I want to say at the top here that I appreciate everyone that's been enjoying these videos. They've been a lot of fun to make and I've gotten a pretty good response from them. Especially the writer one I was worried about because, dipping back into writer content here and there since I stopped more regularly hasn't yielded the best results, but I've gotten a lot of positive responses from my new writer content. So I appreciate that and I'm excited to do more of these as I will alternate between Sentai and writer and do varying suit videos, so expect stuff like secondary writers and super modes and all that stuff. But anyway, let's get started. So as a pre-introduction to this, I'll just say in regards to the Showa writers, I have a weird relationship with them. It's complicated on Facebook status. That's an outdated joke. But I almost have a little bit of a disdain for them just because they kind of physically represented the soulless suits aspect of the Taisen movies, and in general, I'm not as big a fan. It's weird going over the suits for this because I've really realized about myself, one of my favorite aesthetics is like a modern retro, but I don't like the dated retro. But that being said, going over for this list, there are things I appreciate more than I thought. But I kind of had a disdain for the Showa writers because they represented the soulless suits, and I always felt like, God, these are so dated looking. If we're going to keep putting these, empty suits in the movies, can we at least get an updated version? But then going over for this video, I realized that these are the updated versions, sort of. I mean, they're mostly faithful to the original suits, but they're much more modern looking, and the older ones look way worse. So that was something interesting that I found. But starting at the beginning, obviously, with Kamen Rider Ichigo, you have a couple different variants of the original design. You have the original design with the blue and the regular, which looked the most dated, and then you have kind of the modern update one. It's not like an update, but it's kind of just making the suit now not look so cheap. And I'll say that for the original design, and I'm going to extend this to Kamen Rider Nigo too and his designs because they're so close together, that I have respect for the design because it lays down the core basis of what a Kamen Rider is. Well, that's not true, because the Kamen Riders are the defenders of Antara, and all these guys are pretenders. It lays down the basis of the Kamen Rider design, and I do like it for that, but I've just never been the biggest fan of Ichigo proper, at least in the form of his original costume. Then you have V3, which is way, weirder looking and kind of loud than 1 and 2, but I kind of always had a soft spot for V3 for two reasons. Number one, years ago when I was first getting into Sentai, I had found an anime store here that actually had a handful of toku things, a couple bootlegish DVDs, the Sentai encyclopedia, and then they had this one little random chance figure of V3, and it was one of the first writer merchandise things I had outside of mass writer toys. And so I always had a soft spot for it, and I also do kind of appreciate its more unique kind of, louder design. I'm going to go over their modern updates as well, as they have received some more modern updates. You had the first and the next movies, which are my favorite updates of these suits, of all of the updates we've gotten. I think they're the perfect modern update. They take the core aesthetic and they make it look modern and slick. That movie is over, I've actually never seen them, I really should watch them, or over a decade old, but they still look like they would hold up. The only thing I don't like, which is going to extend to my thoughts on Shin Kamen Rider, is I don't like them leaving it as a helmet. I get the idea, it's a bike helmet, but I don't like seeing the hair in the back. For me, it's creepy. It almost comes across like a serial killer. I don't know why. But outside of that, I really love those designs. And speaking of Shin Kamen Rider, since I just mentioned it, I think it's a really solid modern update. It feels like halfway between sort of the cleaned up Ichigo suit that we've recreated for now and the first and the next, where it sticks really close to the core design, but it doesn't look as dated. That being said, I just don't like having the hair stick out, especially with the longer hair. It looks like Purge Night's about to happen. Maybe a hot take, I actually really like the bulkier, updated Ichigo suit we got for the anniversary movie with Ghost. It is a little silly looking, but I always thought it was kind of cool and badass, and I like that they kind of designed it, or at least I think this is why they designed it, to sort of match the actor's current physique. Instead of trying to stuff it into the regular suit or pretend it's morphed or whatever. I thought it was kind of, he kind of has a bulkier physique now, and I don't know, I just always dug that one. I had a soft spot for it. And then you have Rider Man, which I guess counts as main writer, which I didn't know, but I've never been a fan of that. Again, Purge Night. I just feel yeah, it's creepy. Seeing the mouth, the actual mouth, just creeps me out. I have to say, I do like Kamen Rider X. You know, it does have a dated design like a lot of them, but looking at pictures for this review a little bit, there are a lot of things I like about it. It's kind of like that old cliche of just putting like X by something makes it seem cool, and like it does, it makes it cooler. It's like, I like the design of the X on the helmet. You know, it kind of conveys that really cheap and easy way of making something cool. Amazon, I really appreciate Amazon's uniqueness in regards to his design. I've never been a big fan of the classic suit personally, but kind of much like the original one, I have a lot of respect for it for being unique. And since I'm talking about it, I might as well talk about the Amazon update suits from the series, which I really do like. I prefer the modern, I think the Alpha one, I think Alpha is the green one, because I think that's really cool. And what I think is cool about these two in general is I feel like when they sat down to design this series, they kind of had two ideas. They're like, okay, we could design it like closer to the original, obviously in a different color, but just make the suit look less cheap, or we could do a more modern take. And they're like, why not both? And so that's what they did. So for Omega, I believe Omega, which is red, you kind of stick closer to the original design, and it works really well. And I have more of an affection for it because he was my favorite character from that series. But I prefer the Alpha suit. I think it's a really cool modern update, and I actually like it a lot more, springboarding off the Amazon design. And despite the fact that, what's his name, Chiri or Chiji or Chichi, the character of the Neo Amazon from second season is one of my most hated writer characters. I just remember him being so annoying. And also season 2 was like needlessly gross. But despite all that, also a really great suit, a really great modernization taking the Amazon basis design. I would love to see more of the Showa series get either seasons or movies like this where we get like a modern take on the designs. Stronger's fine. I do kind of appreciate that Stronger has a lot of personality to it. Almost like looking at it, obviously Stronger came first, but it almost looks like a parody of Kamen Rider Kabuto. Again, I know it came first, but just looking at it. But I have a slight appreciation for the goofiness. Sky Rider's one that actually looking at it, I feel weird about like the chest piece. There's something off about the chest piece. But overall, it's actually not a terrible design. I actually kind of like the helmet and the color scheme. There's just something kind of off about the chest piece to me. Super 1, I think, is probably my favorite Showa era design. It's one of the few that I actually really do like. The suit looks a little bit dated when you see it, but it's an overall really cool design that I like a lot. It's got a really modern slickness to it. It is a bit weird having like the cowboy tassels or whatever, but something I find interesting about this design is, you know, there are certain designs in the more modern era like Mach or Double or 01 that are kind of a retro throwback but with a modern, you know, twist. And this is like something that was actually made in the past that feels like it was given a futuristic vibe that actually holds up. It feels like that concept in reverse, to the point where outside of the suit looking dated, if you were to announce something like this in modern day, I think it would fit in. Kamen Rider, is it Z-Cross, ZX? I can't remember. I actually like this one. I forgot about this one existing and looking over suits for this video. It's got a really cool and unique color scheme to it that I actually really kind of dig. Kamen Rider Black, I think, is a really great classic design. I think it's one of the ones, him and Black RX are the ones that hold up the most in terms of just seeing them in modern day, and it's got a really good, just clean design that I really like a lot. I obviously have a bit of a soft spot for Black RX just because of Masked Rider, you know, growing up with that show, and it being kind of the reason that I was able to get into Kamen Rider, since my familiarity led me to want to actually check out Masked Rider. But I do appreciate the design. I think I do prefer Black's core design, but there's a lot I like about Black RX's design. In general, I like the concept of the sequel series and getting a new suit, but I do like how much his helmet looks like a grasshopper. Like, it's one of the most accurate to that concept. It looks weird, but it's well done. Kamen Rider Shin is fine. I'll be honest, for the most part, not always, but for the most part, I'm not the biggest fan of monstrous rider designs, kind of like this and another Agito. Geo and Jay are very close together. I actually quite like them. It's Geo that there's just something slightly off about the patterning that Jay kind of fixes. They feel very related, but I actually kind of dig them, and I dig their helmet with like kind of the white accent running down the middle. That's actually rather cool. Okay, now we get into some sort of odds and ends type of stuff. You have Kamen Rider G from that one-off spin-off series. He's actually a pretty cool design. He almost has a bit of that modern retro feel to it, where it's kind of like a throwback to classic Rider designs, but with a more modern sensibility. It's funny because it's very parody-esque with the giant G and the wine transformation, and yet it's not at all any more ridiculous than stuff we've actually got. I've always just kind of dug that design. Of course, I've already gone over the Amazon stuff. You also have Kamen Rider Aqua, which I know is a bit of a different case, but I think he was designed to be a future rider, and I think designed to look like a future version of a main rider, definitely pulling from that idea of looking at the core concept of the old Showa designs and doing a modern version, and I always really liked it. I thought it was a slick, cool looking design, probably not one we would use fully today just because you'd have to have a gimmick for it, but I really appreciate that idea. I think it was for an anniversary too or something. But yeah, I love the design, I love the color on it, I love the concept. I always thought it was pretty cool. Then you do have stuff like the Geo Future Riders, which were, to be honest, a really cool idea. Obviously, the most notable one being Shinobi, to the point where there were legitimately stupid people that thought that was going to be the series in 2023. Like, come on, son. His belt was part Geo's. Like, think, guys. But anyway, probably the most notable because I think he was the most popular suit-wise, and also, you know, he got that special, and he also recently got a special with Kamen Rider Tycoon. It is a really good design. It's actually my least favorite, but that doesn't mean I don't like it at all. It's just I think the other two were a little more creative. This one is like very much like a very easy get, like a ninja themed Kamen Rider, easy win. It is a really cool design. I like it a lot. I think that I have a lot of respect for what they did, basically using a lot of Geo assets to create 3 entirely different looking riders. So I do like Shinobi. I want to make that clear. It's not least favorite in the sense that I don't like it. I think I just prefer the outside the box aspect of, like, Quiz I think is the ugliest and the cheapest looking, but I have a soft spot for it because I think it's the most unique. In fact, that's my favorite conceptually. I think it's the most fun, and I really have a soft spot for it. I think, is it Kikai? I think Kikai is the name of the other one. Actually might be my favorite. I think it just has a really badass and unique design, and I just really like it a lot. There was also Ginga. Again, these are kind of in a loose category of counting. Like, even on the wiki, they only count Shinobi, but since these were always supposed to be something of this design, I thought I'd go over Ginga. Ginga, I actually like his design. I think it's pretty unique. I think he got the least to do, if I remember. I feel like he basically just showed up to give Waz a power-up. You also have stuff like the recent Black Sun designs, which I actually do kind of dig those. They leaned a little bit towards the monstrous side of things, but in a kind of a more balanced way. Kind of right in between a more normal rider suit and something that is, you know, monstrous. And I actually kind of dig them. I might prefer the original designs, I'm not sure. I really do need to watch that show, put it on my catch-up list now that I've finished up Revice. Other ones I wanted to include were stuff like Future Riders, and off the top of my head, I can only think of 3, which was my favorite, which is New Den-O. That's not only one of my favorite designs for this video, but my favorite designs, period. I just really like it a lot. It's such a well-done idea of Future Den-O. I think that idea is cool in general. I don't want to see it be an idea we wear into the ground, but I would love to see, like, what future versions of a lot of main riders would look like in the stories where it would make sense. But this is just so well done because it clearly conveys that it's like Den-O in the base, and yet it feels so futuristic. Like, obviously that's what it is, but it works so well. I love the color scheme. I love the more angular eyes. It's just really cool. I really like New Den-O a lot. There was technically a future Kiva in the finale, but it was basically the same suit with a different Kivat, so like there's nothing to go over. It's the Kiva suit with a slightly different eyes on the belt. And then you did have the Future Drive, which I actually really liked that suit a lot. That's one of my favorite Drive suit. It has this almost retro Tron vibe to it that I just really dug. I thought it was a really cool looking suit. And I loved the idea of Drive then getting a power-up based off of using the Future Shift car. I thought that was overall pretty neat. But I think that's all the ones I have for this that count. There's a chance if I forget something, I'll insert it like I did with my power-up video for Sentai, or I'll just end up forgetting it. But let me know what your guys' favorite Showa and odds and ends main riders are in the comments as always. Until next time, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and climb the steps and ring that bell so you get notifications for my videos. Dawson Rider, signing out.